Hey y'all, welcome to episode 8, I believe, of the relationship between mental health and things of the spirit. Today we're going to be talking about pride. Pride is the number one mental health affliction issue that has been long before the topic of mental health was even understood, um, and is behind a lot of the pain and trauma that we experience on a daily basis throughout our lives, what have you. So, pride is, simply put, just acting out of self interest. And acting out of self interest in of itself is not necessarily an issue. There are times when it's absolutely necessary, but there are times, many times, when it's not, especially when you're dealing with other people. Unfortunately, many people aren't consider God considerate of this oftentimes. I've come to realize it's kind of a rare person that's considerate, like, at all, to be honest. But you know it be how it be. So pride is something that we all have suffered at the hands of someone acting out in pride. Even if you don't believe in this stuff, you can understand that whenever someone is unkind or harmful in any way, to whatever degree, they're acting out of self interest. Even if they think that they're doing it, because sometimes people say, well, I'm doing this for your own good or something like that. And it's absolutely not that case. Still their own self interest. Unfortunately, the thing with pride is that pride is a very blinding thing. So it causes people to be very unaware of self and doesn't encourage them to examine self or submit their mind to Christ and say, was that the best way I could have handled it? Pride will cause that blocker to go up, you know, and it's really unfortunate. Pride is honestly the thing that's going to take most people to the pit if they don't realize it. Pride. How does this affect mental health? Well, like any sin, actually, really, we aren't designed to carry the weight of that sin. Not only does it have detrimental effects to those around us, but even just to self. Carrying around pride will cause you afflictions just to yourself. And it can manifest in several different ways. Um, for me, my story, my testimony is that the Lord has delivered me from this spirit of pride by transforming my mind to be to first think kind of that WWJD kind of thought process, first and foremost, in almost all ways. Since I'm a human being, I don't get it right all the time, but most of the time, I try my best to. And that has caused a serious safety guard for me between me slipping into carnality and or pride, is that I will first consider what is God's view. Never mind my feelings, never mind my thoughts. Now, that is not like, oh, I did that. Like, no. It's him who has continued to break me and break me, honestly, until I realized how much that mindset would not only serve me, but also serve those around me. And it does. As I shared in my latest video, my short video, God is very pro people. So if you're about his work, you're about people. You're about helping people. You're about saving people. You're about, being the absolute best solution for people. Oh. Anyways, so he's been kind of a safety net for me as far as not slipping into pride. But it's can be difficult to do, especially if you're feeling some type of way. Okay. But we're not meant to carry the weight of it. And I feel the freedom of it now that I've been released from it. And it's something that not very many people are. We'll just be honest about that. We need to be honest. And the church is no example of that at all. I think pride is actually the number one affliction within the church. And I'm going to circle back to that point in a minute. But it's crazy how much oh God. The ability to look at people and not have a judgmental, mindset, or even when someone's wronged me, like to still choose to not be offended, or operate with love and respect and kindness. It's like I might want to go off. I might know exactly what to say to just end this, but you know what? The respect, the principle of respect is a really good thing to understand. Now that doesn't mean like let people walk all over you or anything. It's a balancing act, but that's something for another time. Anyways, so we're not meant to carry the weight of it, and the freedom that I feel now is just I want to scream, I want to shout, I want to like run through the streets dancing, like so crazy. But yeah, you will feel the weight of your pride, and it oftentimes will manifest into anger or toxicity, something like that. um and it's so crazy how it really is the affliction of everyone. I see so many people who go back and forth about this and that, and they're like, the issue is you're not seeing it this way, and I'm telling you exactly how it is. And I'm like, no. And I'm just like, an observer. I'm not like in it. But I'm like, no, the issue is that you think that you have jurisdiction over someone's thoughts. The issue is that you're so insistent that they see it from your perspective. Meanwhile, you're dealing with an entirely different individual. Like, you could be totally right. But it's just crazy, like, that people would get so just caught up in their pride that it's just like, you have to see it my way. Otherwise, this or that. And nowadays, unfortunately, this is really lending itself to mental health issues because people are, I think people have honestly become more prideful, unfortunately. And it's causing more anxiety, more whatever else, probably depression too, but definitely like with anxiety, it's like you can't see it from my perspective, so now we have an issue. And it's like that's not even the issue. It's really just not even the issue. But I digress. So when looking at this with a spiritual lens and also like from a mental health perspective, one way this is really really prevalent is with the kind of division between the older generation and the younger generation. I would say like boomers and around that age, and late millennials, Gen Zs, that age. There's a serious division, unfortunately, that has never been to the level that it is now. There's always been, not always, there has been division, but not not at all to the level that, we're seeing now. So, why is that the case? Well, I think there's several things to consider, but one of them is pride. One of them is definitely pride. On one hand, we have a generation that feels very, very strongly that everything of old was good and it was just a better time and all this stuff, and we should hold on to all that. And, you know, this is just how it should be. This is how I was raised, so this is how, we need to look at things, blah, blah, blah. On the other side of it, though, we have a generation of people who have all this new information, and it's like, no, that's not right, or that way of how you handled this or how you dealt with me, especially like with parents to their children, caused me trauma. One thing that hasn't been considered with this day of information that we have is that with great information comes a great level of potential delusion. Meaning, or what do I mean by this? Well, if you have information in the wrong hands, good information in the wrong hands, excuse me, it can still be a weapon. It can actually be more of a weapon. And this hasn't been fully realized. And, excuse me, sorry. When it comes to some of the mental health issues that we're having, while a lot of them, especially when it's like parents and children and that divide, a lot of the information that children are receiving has some truth to it, is correct. A lot of us have been gaslit, a lot of us have been manipulated, a lot of us have been a whole list of things. However, within our pride, we forget that that's kind of just the way human beings are. We just naturally are just like that. We forget all the times that we've been that way, to other people. The Holy Spirit once showed me that intellect without grace is misappropriated pride. And I was so floored by that revelation. But it's true. And unfortunately, this is where a lot of our societal breakdown with the relationships between parents and their adult children is coming into play. A lot of us, there was the initial pride of this is the way it is and this is how it's got to be, blah, blah, blah. And then there's this new pride of, no, we have new information and you were wrong and we just want to get rid of everything that you taught us, blah, blah, blah. And there's no room for grace in that kind of dynamic. And it's so sad because as a society, we cannot advance, we cannot continue actually, if there's no room for grace and understanding. Our society will cease to exist, and it's already seriously crumbling, unfortunately. We have to be able to lend grace. We have to be able to lend understanding. So we can't be so prideful on one end to hold on to things and just say, well, this is how it was, so this is how it is. And I can't see beyond that, and I don't want to see beyond that, even when presented with new information. But we also can't be so prideful that we now have all this information and we want to force it onto other people and say, yeah, you should have, why didn't you realize this? You should have gotten this right. And this is a lot of what I see nowadays, unfortunately. This is a really big thing that the Lord keeps bringing up for me, is this, and maybe it's because it's a personal thing, I'm not sure, but this divide between parent and child, it's a really, really big thing. And I know a lot of people need healing with that. A lot of people need healing with that. And I just pray that, you can find that and get there. because we really can't have this continue. But either side of that is pride, and you will actually sustain more injuries if you're a child who's been hurt by your parent, traumatized by your parent, whatever the case is. I hear you, I see you, I feel you, I relate. But you will sustain more injuries if you hold on to this idea of like, they should have been like this, and I can't believe they did that, and I'll never be able to forgive them for this, and all this stuff. You will sustain more injuries mentally and emotionally and spiritually. Because if you walk in unforgiveness, you've just now given um, an entry point for the enemy to afflict you with anxiety, depression, whatever. You might think that you're okay because, oh, well, now I'm not talking to my parents, so I'm free. A lot of people say that, but they're carrying what they don't even realize. They're carrying so much hate and resentment, blah, 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 that even the thought of their parent is just like repulsive to them. They have no peace as soon as their parent is brought up or something reminds them of their parent or something like that. You know, there's a difference between being healed and truly being healed. There's a difference between thinking you're healed because that person is no longer occupying a space in your life versus you're actually healed because you can still be around them and carry a level of respect. And, you know, you don't have to be buddy buddy with them, but if their very presence pisses you off, that's a problem. You're not healed. And this is what I'm seeing. Like, a lot of people are like talking about, man, it's the best decision I ever made to like cut off my parents. Now, there might be situations where that is something to do. Maybe it is. Think you should go about it respectfully, but I understand, you know, there could be situations where that's definitely what should be done, 100%. But not every single situation. And most of us have parents to a degree who cared for us, who loved us, whatever. Even if it's not to the degree that we needed. We need to understand that child psychology and dealing with children was only something explored. I think it started in the 50s. So prior to the 50s, at least general knowledge did not consider the psychology of a child. So it's been, what is that, like 75 years or something like that. Um no, 70 years, I think. So it's plenty of time to get on board, but you know, unfortunately, things take time, and you have to have grace with people in their understanding that, you know, that it also, even though that knowledge was out there, it wasn't something that was, it wasn't like, oh, okay, now we have this understanding, and then people just were like, okay, let's just, you know, read this and go for this or whatever. No, people were skeptical. People couldn't even, a large part of our society couldn't even fully read. Like, I don't know when literacy became like a norm, but um there was a time when it definitely wasn't the norm. So all I'm trying to say is that you know, we have to have grace. We absolutely have to have grace with people, and um I just pray that anyone hearing this will just understand this, that I'm not trying to say, you know, this is okay or this is okay. Any sort of behavior is okay. We look to our parents, excuse me, for maturity and for them to provide us with what they need. But there's certain things that they didn't even grow up with that they needed, that they didn't realize they needed. They can't give beyond their own capacity. And that's what the Lord has tried to show me recently and help me walk with grace in the areas that I have been met with, you know, not grace, quite frankly. Um, but yeah, no, you'll sustain more injuries if you don't walk in forgiveness. You'll be more hurt. Um, Not only because you're breaking spiritual protocol, but also um or spiritual principles, but also or yeah, I guess yeah, because you're breaking spiritual principles. That's not it has a relationship, mental health and things of the spirit. So if you understand one, things of the spirit, naturally it'll have an effect on mental health. Oh yeah. So the last point that I was gonna make is that someone said this really good thing that I just only recently realized is that we as a generation have been more therapied, went through more therapy than any other generation ever, 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 ever. And it like, it's I don't know what the statistics are exactly, but I would have reason to believe at least a quarter of our United States is in therapy, maybe even more than that. Yet, we're also at a all-time record of anxiety, depression, unaliving thoughts, all that kind of stuff. That's kind of interesting how those two things are happening simultaneously, but I digress. But please don't slip into the pride, and it goes both ways. Don't slip if you are a child who's been hurting from your parent. And it could be any situation, by the way. It doesn't have to be the parent to child thing. This is just what the example that the Lord gave me. But don't slip into the pride of, well, you did this wrong and you did this wrong and you did this wrong. But also, parents, don't slip into the pride of, oh, you're new information and you think you're so smart, and that kind of like attitude, you people with your feelings and all that stuff. That's also equally a pride that needs to be dismantled. That you will get nowhere. You will lose your relationship with your child, unfortunately. Because you can still have respect, but that doesn't mean that you have to be close to someone. It really doesn't. Um, but yeah, just know that information has to come with humility. Otherwise, you'll slip into even deeper pride. And the effects might be even worse than where you were before. So I hope this helps someone. And I just pray that grace will be your portion. It will free you like nothing else. Like nothing else, truly. This isn't like me giving you some new revelation um doctrine ideology to follow. No, this is just the principle of grace. This is just live it, learn it, love it. You'll be good. Anyways, let me stop yapping. I pray that this blesses you, and if this helped you, please do like, comment if you like. If something was unclear, let me know. And Jesus loves you. God bless.